Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Terra's Pride, watching the massive station grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Prime looked like a twisted metal flower, with arms reaching out in all directions. Ships from dozens of different worlds were docked at its ports. Some looked like giant crystals, others like living trees, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy held together by invisible forces. "First time seeing a Deathworld Alliance station?" asked Dr. Lisa Carter, as she joined him at the viewing window. She carried a small case in her hands, treating it like precious cargo. "Yeah," Jake replied. "Hard to believe they invited us to join their little club of dangerous species." He turned to look at the case. "You sure that thing is going to make a good impression?" Lisa smiled and patted the case gently. "Trust me, Captain. This represents everything beautiful about Earth's ability to create life in harsh conditions. It's perfect for showing them that we're not just another bunch of war-hungry Deathworlders." Behind them, Communications Officer Ben Taylor called out from his station. "Captain, we're getting clearance to dock at Port 7. They're sending over their diplomatic protocols now." Jake nodded. "Any special requirements?" "Nothing unusual. Standard atmospheric settings, gravity at 0.8 Earth normal. They're asking about our gift presentation format." Ambassador Kevin Brooks stepped onto the bridge, adjusting his formal diplomatic robes. Kevin had spent 3 years learning Alliance customs and languages. His job was to make sure humanity didn't accidentally start a war by using the wrong greeting gesture. "The gift ceremony will take place in the Grand Hall," Kevin said. "According to their traditions, we present our offering, explain its significance, and then share a meal together." "Simple enough." Jake looked at the case again. "What exactly did you put in there, Doc?" Lisa's eyes lit up. "A perfect example of Earth's ecosystem balance. I've got several native plants, rich soil full of beneficial microorganisms, and one of our most helpful household companions. It's a complete miniature environment that shows how different Earth species work together." "Household. Companion?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "A house centipede. They're wonderful little creatures. They eat all the pests that might damage plants or bother people. Most humans don't even notice them. They just quietly do their job, keeping our homes clean of unwanted insects." Kevin nodded approvingly. "Excellent choice. A creature that serves others without asking for anything in return. That should resonate well with Alliance values." The ship shuddered slightly as it connected with the docking port. Jake felt the familiar sensation of artificial gravity adjusting to match the station's settings. Through the speakers, Ben announced that docking was complete and atmospheric checks were green. "Time to make history," Jake said. The Alliance delegation was waiting for them in the Grand Hall. Jake had seen pictures of other species before, but meeting them in person was different. Zix Thyla looked like a walking collection of living crystals, each one shifting through different colors as she moved. Her voice came from somewhere inside her crystal structure, sounding like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Welcome, humans of Earth," Zix Thyla said. "We are honored to receive you into our alliance of strong species." Gorth stood beside her like a mountain of black glass. His species didn't have faces in the human sense, but somehow Jake could tell he was studying them carefully. When Gorth spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Your reputation precedes you," Gorth said. "We have heard tales of Earth's challenges and humanity's survival." Kevin stepped forward and bowed in the Alliance style, one hand over his heart, the other extended palm up. "We are grateful for this invitation. We hope to learn much from species who have faced their own world's dangers." The hall was beautiful in its alien way. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that pulsed with soft light. Plants from a dozen different worlds created a garden around the central meeting area. Jake noticed that many of the Alliance plants looked soft and delicate compared to Earth vegetation. "We have brought a gift," Kevin continued, "in the tradition of our species. We believe in sharing the beauty of life across the stars." Lisa stepped forward and placed her case on the ceremonial table. She opened it carefully, revealing the terrarium inside. It was a perfect cube of clear material, filled with rich dark soil, several small earth plants, and a tiny ecosystem complete with its own water cycle. "This represents our world's greatest strength," Lisa explained. "The ability to create cooperative relationships between different forms of life. Each element in this terrarium supports the others." The Alliance representatives moved closer to examine the gift. Jake watched their reactions carefully. Zixthalas crystals shifted to brighter colors, which Kevin had told him indicated interest and pleasure. Gorth's massive form bent down to get a better look at the small container. "The plants are quite robust," observed another Alliance member, a creature that looked like living coral. "Your world must provide excellent growing conditions." Lisa laughed softly. "Actually, Earth is quite harsh. These plants have adapted to survive in difficult conditions. They're stronger because of the challenges they face." "And this soil," Zixthala asked, "it contains living organisms?" "Millions of them," Lisa said proudly. "Bacteria, fungi, tiny insects, all working together to create nutrients for the plants. It's a whole community in just a handful of dirt." The Alliance beings exchanged glances that Jake couldn't interpret. He hoped it was good surprise, not bad surprise. "There is another organism," Gorth rumbled, his voice curious rather than threatening. "Yes," Lisa said, her voice full of affection. "One of Earth's most helpful creatures. It keeps the environment clean and balanced. You might not see it right now. They're shy during the day and prefer to stay hidden." Kevin began the formal presentation speech he had memorized. He talked about cooperation between species, about the strength that came from diversity, and about humanity's hope for friendship with the Alliance. The words were standard diplomatic language, but Jake could tell that Kevin meant them. The ceremony concluded with the traditional sharing of foods from each species' homeworld. Jake tried his best to appreciate the crystalline formations that Zixthalas people considered delicious, while the Alliance members politely sampled human foods. As they prepared to leave, Zixthala approached the terrarium one more time. "We will place this in our diplomatic wing, where all visitors can appreciate your world's gift. I hope you enjoy watching it," Lisa said. "The ecosystem should be quite active once it settles into your station's environment." Jake noticed Gorth and Zixthala exchange another glance, but he was too tired from the long diplomatic event to worry about alien expressions he couldn't read. Back on Terra's Pride, as they prepared to depart for Earth, Jake felt satisfied with their first diplomatic mission. The Alliance had seemed genuinely pleased with the gift, and no one had accidentally started an interstellar incident. "Think they'll actually like watching plants grow?" Jake asked Lisa as they settled in for the journey home. Lisa smiled. "Oh, I'm sure they'll find it very educational. There's nothing quite like observing a complete Earth ecosystem in action." 3 days later, Terra's Pride was already halfway back to Earth when Ben picked up the first emergency transmission from Nexus Prime, but that would be a problem for another day. Maintenance worker Kip hummed a cheerful tune as he checked the environmental controls in the diplomatic wing of Nexus Prime. His small, furry body barely reached the control panels, but he had been working on the station for 12 years and knew every system by heart. His species came from a world of gentle rolling hills and warm sunshine, where the most dangerous creature was a slow-moving plant that might give you a small rash. The human gift sat on its display pedestal, looking peaceful in the soft lighting. Kip had heard about the presentation ceremony 3 days ago. The whole station was talking about how polite and civilized the humans had been. Some of the older Alliance members had expected the Deathworld species to be rough and violent, but the humans had surprised everyone with their careful manners and thoughtful gift. Pretty little thing, Kip said to himself, looking at the terrarium. The plants inside were a deep green color that seemed almost too bright. The soil was darker than anything from his homeworld, rich and thick with nutrients. Bet the science team would love to get a closer look at this. Kip made a note on his workpad to suggest a viewing session. Dr. Veltar, the station's chief scientist, was always interested in biological samples from new worlds. This would be perfect for the weekly educational program. 2 hours later, Dr. Veltar arrived with 3 other members of the science team. Her amphibious skin was a pale blue-green color, almost transparent, showing the slow pulse of fluid through her internal systems. She moved with the careful grace of a species that had evolved in calm, shallow waters where sudden movements meant danger. The humans called it a complete ecosystem, Dr. Veltar said, setting up her scanning equipment around the terrarium. Each part supports the others. It's quite an elegant concept. The other scientists nodded in agreement. Dr. Thyman, whose people resembled walking flowers, was particularly interested in the plant life. Her petals shifted to brighter colors as she studied the green leaves through the clear walls of the container. The vegetation appears highly efficient, Dr. Thyman observed. Notice how the roots have spread through the soil in just 3 days. They must be very good at finding nutrients. Kip watched from a respectful distance as the scientists worked. He enjoyed learning about different worlds and their life forms. His own planet had maybe a dozen different types of plants, all of them slow-growing and predictable. These Earth plants seemed much more active. Dr. Veltar activated her bioscanner and aimed it at the soil. The device immediately began displaying information about the microscopic life forms living in the dirt. Numbers scrolled across the screen faster than any of them could read. Remarkable, Dr. Veltar whispered. The microbial diversity is beyond anything in our databases. There are thousands of different species in just this small sample. Are they dangerous? Asked Dr. Korith, a crystalline being similar to Zixthyla, but smaller and more nervous. No, Dr. Veltar assured him. They appear to be decomposers and nutrient processors. Very beneficial. The humans were correct about the cooperative nature of this system. For 20 minutes, they recorded data about the plants and soil. Everything was fascinating, but harmless. The scientists began to relax, enjoying the chance to study life from the famous Deathworld called Earth. Then something moved in the terrarium. It was just a small shift in the shadows near one of the plants. Dr. Thyman noticed it first. Her flower, petals suddenly closing tight in alarm. Did you see that? She asked. The others looked where she was pointing. For a moment, nothing happened. The terrarium sat quietly under the lights, looking peaceful and innocent. Then they saw it. The house. Centipede emerged from behind a leaf, its dozens of legs moving in perfect coordination. To human eyes, it would have looked like a small, beneficial creature going about its daily business. To the Alliance beings, it looked like their worst nightmare come to life. The centipede moved across the soil with lightning speed, its long legs creating a blur of motion. Its antennae waved as it searched for prey, and its segmented body curved and twisted as it navigated around plant roots. Dr. Veltar made a sound like water being forced through a small pipe. Her transparent skin went completely white, and the fluid inside her body began moving much faster. Kip fell backwards, his small furry body trembling. In 12 years of maintenance work, he had never seen anything move so fast or with such apparent purpose. Dr. Korith's crystalline structure began to vibrate, creating a high-pitched whining sound that filled the room. But the real terror began when the centipede found its prey. A small gnat, so tiny that the humans who prepared the terrarium probably never noticed it, was resting on one of the leaves. The centipede detected it instantly, turned toward it, and struck with incredible speed. The attack lasted less than a second. The centipede's front legs grabbed the gnat. Its mandibles delivered what the scientists assumed was a lethal bite. And then it began to feed with methodical efficiency. Dr. Veltar screamed. It was not a scream of pain or surprise. It was the sound of a being confronting something so far outside their understanding of natural order that their mind could not process it. The scream echoed through the diplomatic wing, then through the corridors beyond, carrying a note of pure, existential terror. Kip fainted, his small body hitting the floor with a soft thud. Dr. Thymon's petals had closed so tightly that she looked like a green rock. She was making small whimpering sounds. Dr. Korath backed away from the terrarium, his crystal body still vibrating. What kind of world creates something like that? He whispered. The centipede, completely unaware of the chaos it had caused, finished its meal and disappeared back into the shadows of the terrarium. To it, nothing unusual had happened. It had simply done what millions of years of evolution had designed it to do: keep its environment clean of pests. Security teams arrived. Within minutes, responding to Dr. Veltar's scream, they found the science team in various states of shock and trauma. It took an hour to get a coherent explanation of what had happened. Station Commander Rax, whose people resembled living coral formations, reviewed the security footage 3 times before he could believe what he was seeing. The humans, he said slowly, gave us a predator. Not just any predator, Dr. Veltar managed to say. Her voice was shaky, and her skin was still pale. Look at the efficiency. Look at the speed. Look at the precision. This creature is built for killing. And they called it a household companion, added Dr. Korath. The implications hit everyone in the room at the same time. If humans considered this nightmare creature a helpful household pet, what did that say about humans themselves? What kind of species could live peacefully with such efficient killers? We need to report this to the Alliance Council, Commander Rax said. Immediately. Within hours, copies of the security footage were being transmitted to Alliance headquarters. Scientists, military commanders, and government officials across dozens of worlds would soon watch the terrifying efficiency of Earth's harmless household companion. The house centipede, meanwhile, settled into a comfortable spot under a leaf and began grooming its legs. It had no idea that it had just changed the course of galactic politics. Back in the diplomatic wing, the terrarium sat under emergency containment protocols. Guards were posted at a safe distance, watching for any sign of movement from the creature inside. Nobody wanted to get too close to humanity's idea of a diplomatic gift. The security footage spread through Nexus Prime faster than anyone expected. What started as a routine scientific report became the most watched video in the station's history. Beings from dozens of different species gathered around viewing screens, watching in horrified fascination as the house centipede demonstrated what Alliance minds interpreted as perfect killing efficiency. Security team leader Voss had seen combat on 3 different worlds. His people looked like walking armor made of living bone, and they had fought wars against creatures that most species considered unstoppable. But watching the tiny Earth predator hunt made his hands shake. How fast did it move? Asked his second-in-command, Officer Kret. Voss checked the analysis reports. The computer estimates 37 centimeters per second. But that's not the worst part. What's worse than that speed? Look at the precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation. It detected prey, calculated an attack, and executed a perfect kill in under 2 seconds. This thing is a living weapon. Officer Kret studied the footage again. And the humans keep these as pets. Not just pets, Voss said grimly. They called it a household companion. That suggests they live with multiple specimens. Across the station, Alliance Council member Thizes was having his own crisis of understanding. Thizes had lived for over 400 years. He had survived the Crystal Wars, the Great Plague, and the collapse of the Third Empire. He considered himself unshakable. He was wrong. "Play it again," Thizes commanded his aide. The footage rolled for the 15th time. Thizes watched the centipede emerge, hunt, kill, and disappear. Each viewing made the situation worse, not better. The creature's casual efficiency suggested millions of years of evolutionary refinement focused on one goal: elimination of other life forms. "Sir," his aide said carefully, "perhaps we should consider that this is normal behavior for Earth creatures." Thizes turned to stare at his aide. "That's exactly what terrifies me. If this is normal, what do their actual predators look like?" Similar conversations were happening throughout the station. In the medical bay, Dr. Veltar was receiving treatment for severe anxiety. The station's head psychiatrist, Dr. Wynne, had never seen trauma responses like this from a simple biological observation. "She keeps talking about the legs," Dr. Wynne reported to Commander Rax. "The way they moved independently, but in perfect coordination. She's convinced it represents some kind of distributed intelligence system." Commander Rax felt a chill run through his coral-like structure. Distributed intelligence? The theory is that each leg operates with its own microbrain, all connected to a central processor. It would explain the incredible speed and precision. And the humans live with these things? According to their gift presentation, yes. They described them as beneficial household companions that quietly maintain their living spaces. The implications were staggering. If humans casually shared their homes with creatures that Alliance scientists were classifying as potential super predators, what did that say about human combat capabilities? Meanwhile, aboard Terra's Pride, Communications Officer Ben Taylor was becoming increasingly confused by the messages from Nexus Prime. What had started as routine diplomatic follow-up communications had turned into urgent requests for detailed biological assessments. "Captain," Ben called to Jake Morrison, "I'm getting some weird transmissions from the Alliance station." Jake looked up from his mission reports. "What kind of weird?" "They're asking for detailed behavioral studies of our gift specimen. They want to know about feeding patterns, hunting strategies, and defensive capabilities." "Hunting strategies?" Jake frowned. "It's a terrarium with some plants and bugs." "That's what I thought, but they're treating it like we gave them a military asset." They've also requested emergency protocols for something they're calling arthropod containment procedures. Jake called Dr. Lisa Carter to the bridge. When she arrived, Ben showed her the latest batch of messages from the Alliance. Lisa read through them with growing bewilderment. "They want to know if house centipedes hunt in packs? And they're asking about our domestic predator management systems?" "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding," Jake said. "They seem to think we gave them something dangerous." "But it's just a house centipede," Lisa protested. "You can find them in almost any human home. Most people barely notice them." That information, when transmitted back to Nexus Prime as part of the routine diplomatic clarification, caused the situation to escalate dramatically. Alliance Council member Thizes called an emergency session within an hour of receiving the human response. Representatives from a dozen different worlds gathered in the secure conference chamber, all of them having reviewed the terrifying footage. They claim these creatures exist in most human dwellings, Thizes announced to the assembled delegates. The reaction was immediate. Delegate Zor, whose fungal species reproduced through airborne spores, began releasing stress pheromones that filled the chamber with the scent of rotting vegetation. "Multiple specimens per dwelling?" Zor asked, his voice pitched high with anxiety. "According to their cultural attach, humans barely notice them because they quietly do their job," Delegate Murr, a crystalline being similar to Zixthala. shifted through several color spectrums before settling on a deep red that indicated extreme alarm. They've achieved symbiosis with apex predators. It gets worse, Isis continued. When asked for more details about household predator management, the humans seemed confused by the question. They implied that managing such creatures requires no special effort or training. The implications sank in slowly. The Alliance had encountered Deathworld species before, but those species typically had elaborate rituals and technologies for dealing with their dangerous wildlife. Humans appeared to consider living with efficient killers so normal that they couldn't understand why anyone would ask about it. We need to reassess humanity's threat classification, declared Delegate Vash, whose people resembled walking mountains of crystallized sand. If they casually coexist with creatures like this, their combat potential may exceed our current estimates by several orders of magnitude. Back on Nexus Prime, the terrarium had been moved to the station's maximum security biological research facility. What had started as a diplomatic gift was now being treated as the most significant xenobiological specimen in Alliance history. The centipede, completely unaware of the chaos it had caused, continued its normal routine. It emerged at night to hunt for tiny insects, cleaned its legs methodically, and rested quietly during the day. Its behavior was exactly what millions of humans expected from a beneficial household arthropod. But to the Alliance scientists watching through protective barriers and advanced monitoring equipment, every movement was recorded and analyzed as evidence of humanity's terrifying relationship with biological warfare. Dr. Veltar, despite her trauma, insisted on continuing her research. "We have to understand what we're dealing with," she told her assistants. "If humans consider this normal, we need to know what they consider abnormal." The question that nobody wanted to answer was simple. If this was humanity's idea of a harmless diplomatic gift, what would they send if they ever decided to be unfriendly? 3 decks away, maintenance worker Kip was still recovering in the medical bay, occasionally muttering about too many legs moving too fast. His supervisor had already filed a report recommending that future maintenance work in the diplomatic wing be performed by volunteers only. The house centipede, meanwhile, had just caught another gnat and was settling down for a peaceful day of rest. Admiral Stone received the emergency communication while reviewing routine fleet reports at Earth Command. The message came through the highest priority diplomatic channels, marked with codes that hadn't been used since the first contact protocols were established. "Admiral," his aide commander Alex Wright said, handing him the decoded transmission, "you need to see this immediately." Stone read through the report twice before he could believe what he was seeing. The Deathworld Alliance was requesting immediate consultations about humanity's biological warfare capabilities and domestic predator integration systems. "What the hell is a domestic predator integration system?" Stone asked. "I have no idea, sir, but they seem to think we have them." Stone activated his communication link to Terra's Pride. Captain Jake Morrison's tired face appeared on the screen, with the stars of hyperspace visible through the bridge windows behind him. "Jake, what exactly did you people give the Alliance?" Jake looked confused. "A terrarium, sir." Dr. Carter put together a nice display of earth plants and soil. "Very peaceful, very diplomatic. They're calling it a biological weapon." The confusion on Jake's face deepened. "Sir, it's a box of dirt with some flowers in it, and maybe a few bugs." "What kind of bugs?" Jake turned to look off screen. "Hey, Doc, what was that bug you put in the gift?" Dr. Lisa Carter's voice came from somewhere beyond the camera range. "A house centipede. They're wonderful for pest control." Admiral Stone felt a headache coming on. Put Dr. Carter on screen. "When?" Lisa appeared. Stone noticed she looked as confused as everyone else. "Doctor, the Alliance is treating your gift like a weapon of mass destruction. They want detailed information about human domestic predator management." Lisa blinked several times. Domestic predator management? Admiral, house centipedes aren't predators in any meaningful sense. They just eat tiny insects. They're completely harmless to anything larger than a fruit fly. Then why are the Alliance representatives having psychological breakdowns after watching it? I have no idea. Maybe they've never seen arthropods before? Stone decided to call in an expert. Dr. Rachel Green was Earth's leading specialist in interspecies psychology, and she had helped develop the first contact protocols used with dozens of alien species. Dr. Green arrived at Earth. Command within 6 hours, bringing with her a case full of research materials and a deeply concerned expression. I've been reviewing the Alliance psychological profiles, she told Stone. Most of their member species evolved on worlds with very simple ecosystems. Their most dangerous predators are things like slow-moving plants or creatures that might give you a mild rash. So they've never seen anything that moves fast? Worse than that, they've never seen anything that hunts efficiently. Their concept of predation involves slow stalking over days or weeks, followed by gradual consumption. The idea of instant detection, immediate attack, and rapid feeding is completely outside their evolutionary experience. Commander Wright pulled up the footage from Nexus Prime on the main screen. So when they see this, they see the most efficient killing machine they could imagine, Dr. Green finished. And then we tell them that humans live with these things voluntarily. Admiral Stone watched the centipede hunt for the dozenth time. It really doesn't look that scary. That's because you're human, Dr. Green explained. You've been around arthropods your entire life. Your ancestors survived millions of years alongside creatures like this. To you, it's normal. To them, it's impossible. The situation got worse when Earth Command tried to clarify things by sending detailed information about Earth's ecosystem. The intention was to help the Alliance understand that house centipedes were just one small part of a complex biological system. The effect was exactly the opposite. Commander Wright was in charge of preparing the educational materials. He gathered information about Earth's biodiversity, focusing on how different species interacted in beneficial ways. The report mentioned that house centipedes were actually quite small compared to other Earth arthropods. That single sentence caused 3 Alliance representatives to require medical attention. The Alliance's response came back within hours. They wanted to know about Earth's larger arthropod species and their integration into human society. Dr. Green shook her head as she read their questions. They think we're describing a hierarchy of biological weapons. They want to know if humans use different-sized arthropods for different purposes. Different purposes? They're asking if we use small ones for household maintenance and larger ones for agricultural management or territorial defense. Stone realized the situation was spiraling completely out of control. What happens when they find out about spiders? Or beetles, Wright added helpfully. Some beetles are bigger than house centipedes. Dr. Green turned pale. Or hornets. Or praying mantises. Or any of the thousands of other species that humans consider normal. The Alliance was now treating the terrarium as the centerpiece of the most intensive xenobiological research project in galactic history. Teams of scientists from dozens of worlds were studying every aspect of the centipede's behavior, trying to understand how humans had weaponized such creatures. Dr. Valtar, despite her ongoing psychological treatment, had become the leading expert on what the Alliance now called Terran combat arthropods. Her research notes read like military intelligence reports. Subject demonstrates perfect hunting efficiency, she wrote. 0 wasted energy, instant prey detection, flawless execution. Estimated kill ratio approaches theoretical maximum. Integration with human domestic systems suggests centuries of selective breeding for optimal performance. The truth was much simpler. House centipedes had been living alongside humans for thousands of years, not because humans had bred them, but because human homes provided good hunting grounds for small insects. It was evolution, not engineering, but the Alliance couldn't conceive of such casual coexistence with efficient predators. In their understanding, any species that could live peacefully with such creatures must have either conquered them through superior force or achieved some kind of impossible biological harmony. Neither option was comforting. Chief Medical Officer Quinn aboard Terra's Pride reported that Alliance medical teams were requesting detailed information about human psychological resistance to arthropod proximity stress. They seemed to think humans required special mental conditioning to avoid trauma from living near centipedes. They want to know about our training programs, Quinn told Jake over the communication link. They assume we have extensive psychological preparation for cohabitation with predatory species. Jake rubbed his forehead. The only training most humans get is learning not to squish the helpful bugs. That information, when transmitted to the Alliance, was interpreted as evidence of advanced behavioral conditioning programs designed to suppress natural fear responses to dangerous creatures. The climax of the misunderstanding came when the centipede molted inside the terrarium. Molting was completely natural. The creature was simply growing and shedding its old exoskeleton to make room for its larger body. To the Alliance scientists watching through their monitoring equipment, it looked like the creature was preparing for its next evolutionary phase. Emergency protocols were activated throughout Nexus Prime. The terrarium was moved to the station's most secure containment facility, normally reserved for galaxy-threatening superweapons. The house centipede, now slightly larger and with a shiny new exoskeleton, settled into its favorite hiding spot and began grooming its legs. It had no idea that its simple biological function had just convinced an entire galactic alliance that humans possessed adaptive bioweapons capable of real-time evolution. On Earth, Admiral Stone received reports that 47 different Alliance species had requested immediate intelligence briefings on human biological warfare capabilities. The requests were coming in faster than Earth Command could process them. "Sir," Commander Wright said, "I think we might have accidentally started something we can't stop." Captain Jake Morrison had never expected to conduct the most important diplomatic meeting in human history while holding a bug. But as he sat in the secured communication chamber aboard Terra's Pride, with Dr. Lisa Carter beside him and a small terrarium on the table between them, he realized that was exactly what was about to happen. The holographic communication link activated, showing the emergency council chamber aboard Nexus Prime. Every major Alliance representative was present, but Jake noticed they were all sitting much farther from the camera than usual. Some were barely visible in the background. Alliance Council member Thizes spoke first, his ancient voice carrying centuries of authority. "Captain Morrison, we must discuss the implications of your species' biological capabilities." Jake looked at Lisa, who shrugged helplessly. "Honored Council member, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding about our gift." "Misunderstanding?" Tice's voice rose several octaves. "Your species has presented us with evidence of the most sophisticated biological warfare program in known galactic history." "It's a bug," Jake said simply. The silence that followed lasted almost 30 seconds. Jake could see several Alliance representatives exchanging glances, and at least two of them seemed to move even farther from the camera. Dr. Lisa Carter leaned forward. "Honored representatives, I believe the confusion comes from our different evolutionary backgrounds. What seems normal to us might appear threatening to you." "Normal?" came a voice from somewhere off-screen. Jake recognized it as belonging to Dr. Veltar, the Alliance scientist who had been studying the centipede. "You call living with apex predators normal?" Lisa reached into the terrarium beside her and gently picked up a house centipede that was identical to the one causing all the trouble. The reaction from the Alliance representatives was immediate and dramatic. Several of them made sounds that Jake's translation software couldn't interpret. At least 3 moved completely out of view of the camera. Dizes himself seemed to shrink into his chair. "Please observe," Lisa said calmly, allowing the centipede to walk across her hand. "This is normal interaction between humans and house centipedes." The centipede crawled up her arm, over her shoulder, and settled comfortably in her hair. Lisa continued talking as if nothing unusual was happening. "They're beneficial creatures. They eat mosquitoes, flies, cockroaches, and other insects that might bother humans or damage our food supplies. Most humans consider them helpful neighbors." "Neighbors?" Dizes whispered. "We share our living spaces with them. They stay hidden during the day and hunt pests at night. It's a relationship that benefits both species." Jake watched the Alliance representatives struggling to process this information. "The important thing to understand," he added, "is that humans don't control these creatures. We don't train them or breed them for specific purposes. They just live alongside us because our homes provide good hunting grounds for the insects they eat." Dr. Veltar's voice came through the speakers, shaky but determined. "You're saying this coexistence is natural? Not engineered?" "Completely natural," Lisa confirmed. "House centipedes have been living near humans for thousands of years. We didn't create this relationship. It just evolved because it works for both species." There was another long silence. Finally, Delegate Zor spoke. Up from the background, "Your world must be incredibly dangerous if such creatures are considered beneficial." Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. This was the heart of the misunderstanding. "Earth is challenging," Jake admitted, "but that's made us adaptable. We've learned to work with our environment instead of fighting it." "The creatures on our world had to be efficient to survive," Lisa added. "That's why this little one moves fast and hunts effectively. But efficiency doesn't mean aggression toward humans." The centipede chose that moment to crawl down Lisa's arm and begin grooming its legs, completely relaxed in her presence. Commander Rax's voice joined the conversation. "How many species like this exist on Earth?" "Thousands," Lisa said without thinking. Then she realized her mistake as several Alliance representatives made distressed sounds. "Thousands of predatory species coexisting with humans?" Dizes asked weakly. "Well, yes, but most of them are much smaller than house centipedes, and many aren't predators at all. We have beetles that eat dead wood, butterflies that pollinate flowers, bees that make honey, ... They make food for you?" Dr. Veltar interrupted. "Some do. Others just live their lives while we live ours. It's a very complex ecosystem, but it works." Jake decided to try a different approach. "Think of it this way. Your worlds taught your species to be careful and cautious. Our world taught us to be adaptable and cooperative. Neither approach is better or worse. They're just different responses to different challenges." The discussion continued for 2 hours. Slowly, carefully, the Alliance representatives began to understand that humanity's relationship with creatures like house centipedes wasn't about warfare or dominance. It was about coexistence in a world where everything had to work together to survive. The breakthrough came when Dr. Veltar asked, "So humans don't see these creatures as weapons?" "We see them as neighbors," Jake replied. "Sometimes helpful, sometimes just there, but always part of our world." By the end of the meeting, the Alliance had reached a new understanding about humanity. They upgraded Earth's classification from Deathworld species to something entirely new: Deathworld shepherds. The official definition read, "a species so adapted to hostile environments that they have achieved natural symbiosis with their planet's dangerous fauna, viewing cooperation rather than conquest as the optimal survival strategy." 3 months later, the house centipede terrarium was installed in the Alliance Museum of Galactic Wonders. The placard beside it read, Common Household Companion, Earth Origin. Example of Natural Interspecies Cooperation. Viewing recommended for advanced xenobiology students only. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy came to see what they believed was one of the most dangerous creatures in known space. Quietly, hunting fruit flies in its peaceful terrarium. Dr. Lisa Carter published a book called Living with Earth, A Guide to Deathworld Ecology. It became required reading at 17 different Alliance universities and was translated into 43 languages. Dr. Veltar founded a support group for scientists suffering from Terran biological exposure syndrome. The group met weekly and had over 200 members across 12 different species. Maintenance. Worker Kip returned to work after 6 weeks of therapy, but he still refused assignments in the diplomatic wing. His supervisor noted in his file that he had developed an unusual sensitivity to arthropod-related stress indicators. The house centipede that had started it all lived for another 2 years in its terrarium, completely unaware that it had changed. Galactic politics forever. When it finally died of old age, the Alliance held a formal ceremony to honor the creature that taught us to reconsider our understanding of natural cooperation. Jake Morrison was promoted to Admiral and put in charge of Earth's new Interspecies Understanding Division. His first job was to prepare educational materials about Earth's ecosystem for species that wanted to understand humanity better. His second job was to make sure that future diplomatic gifts were pre-approved by at least 12 different xenobiological committees. The screaming, as promised in the story's title, never completely stopped. Even years later, beings who watched the original footage of the centipede hunting would occasionally wake up from nightmares about too many legs moving too fast. But they also came to understand that the screaming wasn't necessary. Humans had learned to live with their fears, and perhaps other species could learn the same lesson. The centipede, in the end, had taught the galaxy something important. Sometimes, the most frightening thing about the unknown is simply that it's unknown. Once you understand it, even the scariest neighbor can become just another part of the community.